All right, let's talk about one of the most dangerous thoughts in collecting. And honestly, one of the most common is if I don't buy it now, I'll never get it. And so that thinking has probably cost collectors more money than bad pressings, market crashes, and overgraded slabs combined. Because the reality is that most comics come back around. Not some of them, not occasionally, pretty much all of them. And understanding which books are actually scarce versus which ones only feel scarce is how you survive long term in this hobby. That little voice in the back of your mind, that buy it now or lose it forever mentality, usually shows up during auctions when emotions take over. You might see a book, it's in the grade that you like, sellers hyping it. Maybe there's some movie news, markets buzzing about it. And suddenly your brain goes into scarcity mode. Like, I got to do this now. And you stop thinking rationally and start thinking emotionally. That's when people overpay. That's when people start playing games that they shouldn't be playing. I can tell you that there's a whole bunch of people about 6 years ago that were doing that. And I'm certain are very upset and maybe even never returned to the hobby as a result of that. People stretching budgets, ignoring page quality, compromising on things that they swore they would not compromise on. And so I'm going to start with modern books because I want to get that out of the way right now. That's not what this channel is for. And it's the easiest one. Don't ever do that. Don't ever get silly, overpay. Modern books always come back around. I wouldn't even recommend buying a modern book in a slab ever. I don't think that they should even be graded. Now, obviously, the grading companies are going to do their job. They're going to accept your fee. You know, if you go to them with an order, they're going to grade them. But you shouldn't, you should only be buying modern books to read and enjoy them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be buying modern books. You should. If you like the hobby and you enjoy comics, yeah, by all means, I buy modern books. I read them. I enjoy them. I am not grading those. I am not putting them on a wall. No, 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 no. There is a little bit of market manipulation, in my opinion, because there is sites where they're kind of tracking those sales, and there's no. It's not a good place to be if you're looking at comics from an investment standpoint. Really, the books that you should be looking at from an investment standpoint are in the Golden Age and the Silver Age, and like a couple Bronze Age books. And you like, if we wanted to totally nix Bronze Age books from the list, I would be cool with that. Honestly, and I don't care. I'm talking about 181, 129, although I like 129, ASM 129 better than Hulk 181 because it's a Spider-Man key, and Spider-Man books always do well. But 181, you're talking about, I think there's nearly 17,000 blue label copies. I don't own a copy. I'll probably never own a copy again. I mean, it's not even worth really holding unless you've got it in a 9.2 or above. And so on modern books, which are not the books I just said, I just want to make sure everybody understands that, because if there's anybody listening to this that does not understand, Hulk 181 and Amazing Spider-Man 129 are Bronze Age books. On modern books, there is zero urgency. And for clarity here, they should never, ever, ever, ever be treated as investments in the first place. They're speculative at best. They're fun to read. They can spike here and there depending on what's going on, but they're not scarce and they shouldn't be treated that way. Print runs are massive. Grading numbers are massive. People hoarded them intentionally. And so if you miss out on a modern book today, you lose one in an auction or something like that, you'll see it again tomorrow, next week, next month, who cares? Probably in the same grade, probably cheaper. The only thing you're fighting with modern books is impatience and hype circles, and that's it. It's not about availability. And so if you ever feel rushed to buy a modern book, you should ask yourself why. You should probably come back to this video and play it again and understand that it's not the market. Nothing is going to benefit you by doing anything like that. It's really just FOMO talking. And so let's move into the Bronze Age, because that's where a lot of collectors start to get a little nervous, in my opinion, particularly newer collectors, and make mistakes. Books like Hulk 181, which I just talked about, Amazing Spider-Man 129, Giant Size X-Men 1. That's another book that I don't own and I will probably never own. Iron Man 55. These are iconic books. I mean, they're cool. I love the covers. They're important. In terms of Bronze Age keys, they're blue chip for sure. But the part that people don't understand or even want to hear is there is zero urgency to buy any of these. And I'm talking about none. These books trade constantly. These are books that you could sell your copy today and go buy it back on eBay today, probably in the same grade. These show up all day long, auctions, you name it, marketplace, everywhere. And so shows, conventions, dealer inventories, the census numbers are astronomical, even in mid-grade and even in upper grade. And so if you take a pass on Hulk 181 today, you didn't miss your chance. You just delayed it. You'll get another shot if you really, really want one. If I were you, I would tell you don't even buy one ever. But at the end of the day, you should buy what you like and enjoy. And if that's what you like, then sure. Just don't be surprised when, you sell it if you got to take a haircut on it. So the only book I will say that I do currently own in my PC in high grade, out of the Bronze Age, that this mentality is a little different is MVS 5, Marvel Spotlight 5, because that's the first appearance of Ghost Rider, and it has much fewer copies available relative to demand. And so if you're going to start getting picky about grade on that book, or PQ or eye appeal because it's got a black cover, that's going to get a little more difficult if you're looking for it in high grade above a 9. Even though it might be a little more difficult, again, that does not mean that it is rare. It definitely does not mean buy the first one you see at any price. So you should not do that either. So Bronze Age is where patience is rewarded. If you're interested in that, if you want that, there is no clock ticking at all. The market isn't going to run away from you forever. If anything, Bronze Age keys have proven time and time again that waiting usually saves you money. I mean, that's been especially true over the last few years. Those books have done nothing but decline in value. They'll go up again, but there's no urgency there. And so next is the Silver Age, because I do think that things get a little more nuanced with certain books in the Silver Age. But for most Silver Age Marvel keys, and I want everybody to understand that I'm specifically naming Marvel keys, the same rules apply. So these books show up, Fantastic Four, Avengers 1, Amazing Fantasy 15. They're expensive, but they're still liquid. Copies surface regularly. I think where the game changes a bit in the Silver Age is ultra high grade DC. I think this is where people need to pay attention, not panic, but pay attention, because books like Showcase 4 and Flash 105 or Batman 121 in very high grade are genuinely tough books. DC had lower print runs, distribution was different, condition sensitivity is real. I mean, I hope you're not looking for white pages on some of these books, because high grade Silver DC, they have much lower census counts than comparable Marvel books from the same era. And again, that doesn't mean you should rush blindly, but it does mean that if you're targeting a specific grade, let's say a 7.5 or an 8.0 in white pages, you may not see that exact configuration very often. And in those cases, preparation matters more than speed. You should already know your price ceiling. You should already know what compromises you're willing and unwilling to make. Because if the right copy comes up, hesitation without a plan could cost you. But again, I want to be clear, this isn't panic buying. This is disciplined readiness. And so I do want to talk about where the rules do change. And that's the Golden Age. Golden Age comics are a completely different animal because scarcity is real. Attrition is real. Many books simply do not surface often. Some books might show up once a year, some once every few years, some even less than that. So, if you're talking about something like a Superman 1, you might see 2 or 3 copies hit the market in a given year. I think lately I've been seeing more of them, probably because some of the huge sales that have been going on, like the Superman 9.0. But I've been seeing a little bit more of those, maybe a couple extra per year than I normally would. The Superman movie from last year also may have had something to do with that. But in those sorts of phases, that means there is some opportunity, but it's still limited. And if you're looking for a very specific grade or PQ, restoration status, maybe you have to have a blue label. Well, that could narrow the field dramatically. And so I think this is where some collectors can misunderstand urgency because the golden age urgency isn't about speed, it's about selectivity. You're not racing other buyers blindly. You're waiting, sometimes for a long time, for a copy that's going to actually fit your criteria. And here's the important part because even in the golden age, most of the time, there is still not a need to rush. Rushing usually leads to regret in this hobby. You could end up buying a copy that doesn't quite check your boxes. And then 6 months later, the one you really wanted shows up, and now you're stuck. You're 80 grand into this thing. And by the way, the golden age books are harder to move because the buying pool is substantially smaller if you have a $5,000 ASM key or if you're into a $45,000, Batman key. It's a much different game to get out of these books if that's the position that you're in. And so the exception to this is when the opportunity actually matches your plan. Right book, right grade, right page quality, right price. Okay, that's not FOMO. That's straight up execution. And that brings us to the core idea that collectors struggle with the most, which is practical collecting and investing takes time. This is not a sprint. This is not a checklist. You do not get bonus points for getting every key faster. The market doesn't reward impatience. In fact, the more actions you take, the more danger you introduce to yourself. Because every purchase at the end of the day is a risk. Every transaction is more exposure. The more frequently you buy, the more chances you're going to have to overpay, misjudge, or make an emotional decision. And so limiting your action is a feature, not a flaw. Good collectors and smart investors are boring. They wait, they pass, they watch books sell, and they don't flinch about it. They let other people pull the trigger while they keep their powder dry. And when they finally move, it's intentional. So the next time that voice pops into your head saying, if I don't buy it now, I'll never get it, pause. Ask yourself a few simple questions. Is this book actually scarce, or does it feel scarce right now? Have I seen this book sell before? Will I likely see another copy in 6 months? Am I buying it because it fits my strategy or because I'm afraid of missing out on it? Most of the time, the answer to these questions ultimately boils down to patience. And again, because comics don't disappear, they circulate, they resurface. And the collectors who last in this hobby are the ones who understand that time is not their enemy, impulse is. And that's how you build a real slab portfolio.